Hey Radicals, it's me. Surprise! You thought it was Ceradust back at it again with another Pokemon! But you fool! It was I, Jeff Narcissist, his evil twin brother the whole time! And now that I have you in my grasp, you will have no choice but to be forced to watch every single episode of Hit Card, Game Card, Soon Chaotic for the rest of your online days!
The girls aren't as lame as I thought they'd be.
Oh man, that was a productive night of watching Bakugan episode 12 and then crying profusely until I fell asleep. Wait a minute, Jeff Narcissist! I thought I defeated you back in 2008! Curse is filed again by my one true nemesis in life, a Bakugan fan. Ah, fuck you! Go on, leave my abode, you magnificent cartoon enjoyer! Ah, ouch, poopy doo-doo! Fine, me and my boo-boo will take matters to someone else's channel. Aw man, what a wicked gnarly foe. He took almost 30% of my full power to vanquish. Alright, now what was I gonna do before I went to tweet #Justice for Shun? Oh yeah, that's right, I was gonna make a video on my second favorite monster collecting based franchise, Pokemon. Yeah, so you probably read the title by now, but man, when I sat down and thought about it, Pokemon and Twist Villains have really been in an awkward relationship for a while now. It's kind of like Disney in the last decade. There are some bangers, which already sets it apart from Disney, and some bad ones, of course. Now, in this excuse to reference my hyperfixations disguising itself as a YouTube video, I will be looking at all the past examples of characters that fall under Twist Villains in the franchise, both good and bad, to see what we can learn and how we can apply that knowledge to the upcoming release of Scarlet and Violet. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to be mostly focusing on the main series, so no spin-offs in this video. And second of all, I'm only going to be going through Twist Villains I have experience with, so if there's a banger or not so banger I don't bring up, please feel free to let me know about what game they're in the comments section, and hell, I might even make a sequel of this video, depending on if I play enough of those. With that out of the way, let's just start talking about these twisty-turny folks.
Oh, gets this. I thought it was.
Yeah, gets his dick in your mouth.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Now, before I started working on this video, I never even considered this magnificent bastard of a trainer. Yeah, I liked En as a rival, and I thought that thematically he was one of the best characters in the franchise. Although I never really thought of him as like a twist villain. But then I really stopped to take a moment and think about it, when I finally realized that according to a twist villain playbook written by Marco D. Isney, yeah, he tracks, actually. Alright, now that @TellYaRoki on Twitter.com has unpaused the video, from the moment you meet En after one of Team Plasma's rallies, dude just comes off like a nice kid on his own journey, if admittedly a little on the weird side given his whole talking to Pokemon thing. But it's when you meet En at Nimbasa City roughly halfway through your adventure when he reveals to you that he's the king of Team Plasma, because he thinks Pokemon deserve to be free from the corrupt hands of the people. Which, to be honest, is a great time to reveal his villain alignment so that we can get time in the story to know he is a villain, so that he can rock the look instead of just coming out of nowhere in the last 10 minutes of the story so that we can have a mandatory third act final battle. Now, after he loses to you at the end of the game, he realizes he was just being gaslit by Gets these nuts in your mouth. But until that point, he is legitimately convinced that using the legendary dragon of the region and becoming champion with said OP dragon is just a stepping stone to doing what's right for Pokemon. And he just hits that perfect blend between rival character and antagonist in the story. And it's the rival aspect of him I really want to focus on right now, because at the end of the day, he's a modern Pokemon rival who feels the most like a rival. Not this weird anti-hero who is thought to be a villain through shenanigans. Nah, he's just a dude going on his own adventure, meeting new friends just as you are. And I feel like this is best shown by his team of Pokemon changing basically every time you fight him. From a simple team of entirely one weak Pokemon, gradually growing throughout your adventure until eventually you fight his team at Team Plasma's castle, which has a great variety of powerful Pokemon. And Vanillux. But another thing that helps out Ed is the sequel with Black 2 and White 2, where we get to see the positive impact he has had ever since leaving Team Plasma searching for his own path. Given we run into a bunch of ex-Team Plasma grunts and Driftvale, who even give you the Zorua En had in the intro cutscene to Black and White 1, and dude even shows up with the respective box legendary to try to help stop his evil dad. Now, admittedly, he does make things worse by allowing the box legendary to be absorbed by Kyurem, ensuing a boss fight, but hey, it's the thought that counts. So, TLDR, yeah, and good. Truly, who would have fucking guessed?
I don't want to learn about Five Nights at Freddy's! I don't want to!
No!
Now, Colress is a very interesting little Tumblr sexy man. You see, he is a quirky little science boy who actually notices how many trainers in the universe seem to be one of the most powerful people in their respective regions, leading Colress to seeking out researching the bond between trainer and Pokemon. Though you would be forgiven for assuming he uses Reddit.com, given you first meet this man in the musky sewers of Castelia City. After which, you run into this funky little scientist every now and then across your journey, until you get your 7th gym badge, only to walk out to see Team Plasma committing ice-based war crimes against Opelucid City, leading you to seek out the originally medieval-themed Team Plasma's pirate ship. You know what? Sure, buddy. Whatever you want to say, guys. Leading you to wonder who could be responsible for Team Plasma's more futuristic technology, only to find out that it was Cylon from Gym 1 of the original games!
Wait, hold on, really?
Yeah, he says that journeying with Ash made him a terrorism connoisseur. No, of fucking course it's Colress. Now, despite the whole working with the evil team thing, the real twist with Colress is that he isn't actually evil. He's just on the neurodivergent spectrum, and his mental illness-induced hyperfixation is doing science. Admittedly, he still fights you before you're allowed to challenge Getses, but honestly, I don't think he even noticed the other Team Plasma grunts, given he probably never even took breaks for neither work nor hygiene. Also, despite his team being mostly Steel-type Pokemon, you know, the type that dies to any good ground or fire type, he actually goes the Giga Chad route to have checks for both of those types on his team. And on a totally not foreshadowing route, I just thought that was pretty awesome. Good for you, man. Lysander from Pokemon X and Y is a bland and uninspired villain. The hottest take of 2017, I know. Motherfucker literally shows up, rants about how the world needs to be more beautiful or some shit, doesn't elaborate, says some questionable things to a champion that would cancel anyone who said it in real life nowadays, and then just fucks off to get some coffee with his professor boyfriend until near the end of the game, where, surprise, he's evil, actually. But you already figured it out hours ago, because he fucking looks like this! Oh, but it's fine, because, you know, we can forgive on subtlety so long as he's at least a compelling character that justifies the negative amount of subtlety going on here, right? Well, he wants to commit Noah's Ark, but again, because the world isn't beautiful enough, I think. Hell, depending on the version you're playing, his methods are questionable given he wants to use the Pokemon of Life to power a death machine, which is totally how that works, I think. And the biggest slight he has committed against me specifically, and I assure you, no one has ever said this before. This is an original criticism exclusively to me. But the guy with his stupid fly robots running an organization called Team Flare has an ace Pokemon that, and get this, is not a fire type! Look, I think it says a lot when the most you've contributed to society is just inspiring a bit in one of ProZD's skit videos.
It was I. My machinations lay undetected for years, for I'm a master of deception.
Which, to be fair, is actually probably more than I would ever be able to contribute to society, so, I mean, hey, maybe he's onto something here with this whole being a bad character thing.
Your mom is so strong! She got arrested.
Okay, so a few of my friends hold the opinion nowadays that Lusamine mid. Now, I'm not gonna name names because they can do that themselves in the comment section. Anyways, I went back into Sun and Moon earlier this year expecting to agree with their opinions. Now, I cannot say much about her appearances in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, or the anime, since I have yet to play those, and watching the latter with my little brother felt like I was starting Kingdom Hearts with the game number 3. What the fuck is happening? Why are they just Power Rangers now? Why is Sophocles the main character? When did Lily get that adorable fucking Vulpix? Why are we not focusing on Tobias in the hospital after his traumatic broom ball incident? But at least in her appearance in Sun and Moon, I actually think she's really good. When we first meet Lusamine in the games, she's just in charge of this nice little nature reserve on this artificial island in the middle of the region where after saving her from an alien Pokemon, she laments over the nuanced beauty of these outer space horrors beyond our comprehension. Okay, yeah, it's a little on the nose that she's going to be the villain, but to be fair, this is incredibly subtle for Pokemon standards. Yeah, so jump cut to when Lusamine actually reveals herself to be a villain by the time you get your third Kahuna beaten, and yeah, turns out she's actually a really good villain. She's hateable, but for the right reasons of, you know, being a horrible person. She's really creepy with a room of frozen Pokemon, which she claims to be her private collection. Which, by the way, the cryogenic freezing of Pikachu was super based. I'm really glad someone's finally putting that rat in his place. She rocks the look, has a great design, and her boss fights are just serviceable, I suppose. But hey, with solid characterization like that, who needs a good boss fight? What really sells Lucamine for me is the subtler details to her, like the power of her leitmotif and how versatile it is, not only making you feel like you're at home, but some of the creepier notes make you feel like something isn't quite right, which is made much more obvious when used in her battle theme. Not to mention how after she's defeated by the player in the final battle and is freed from the Ultra Beast influence, she sees her daughter Lily finally become her own person rather than just doing what Lucamine told her to do via the subtlety of her outfit change, where she's finally able to see her own child as beautiful once again, which in my opinion is a fair way to go about redeeming her character in the end, given how it also ties into Lily's character arc. But in summary, at least in Sun and Moon, damn, Dami Mommy do be pretty cool though.
Hey, what do you think of this?
Okay, I'm gonna keep it real. I bet most of you clicked on this video expecting me to rant about Chairman Rose and why he's the worst thing in Sword and Shield. I am going to do that, but I just wanted to see if I could spook you by knowing what you're thinking. Anyways, yeah, Rose kind of sucks, actually. So the game puts a fair amount of emphasis on Rose early on. Not so much to the point where he steals like, the spotlight, but enough to the point where he stands in for the professor to give the classic Welcome to the World of Pokemon speech all the mainline games have, which admittedly is a first for the franchise. But you'd think by doing this, Rose would be a very important figure in the plot. Now, despite being the main villain of Sword and Shield, the writer decided it would be best to start hinting at his status in the story right before the end of the fucking game! No, seriously, you get the one scene hinting at his tax fraud, you then go to fight the Elite Four equivalent in this game, and then right after you fight Leon, he interrupts the Pokemon League to start the Darkest Day, which is like literally 1 hour before the end of the game, in this dozens of hour-long Pokemon journey. Also, side note, but the plot of this game is just what would happen if Jeff Bezos interrupted a Super Bowl to announce he is going to send a nuke to Washington. Which doesn't sound that bad to me, but I'm sure that got the point across to somebody. Okay, so anyways, while other villains at least spend time to, you know, justify their motives and explain to you why they're doing the things they do, even when Rose is explicitly made the villain, the game does nothing to get you to understand his motives or why he couldn't wait literally 24 hours for one tournament match to happen, so Leon could help Rose literally right after, but instead he just goes on about, oh, woe is me, blah blah blah, rich, blah blah blah, capitalism. You wouldn't understand even if I explained it to you in intricate detail. And overall, Rose just isn't given the time he needs to be a memorable villain, and the explanations just aren't good for sudden villainy, but fine. Now, okay, so he's not given much time to be a villain and isn't given good explanations for sudden villainy, but is his battle at least fun, interesting, or memorable? Okay, so I don't usually judge characters based on their boss fights, and this may very well be my personal experience speaking here, but when I played the game for the first time, I chose Scorbunny, and once fully evolved, Cinderace was able to sweep most of the late game. And unfortunately, Rose is no exception to this rule. Motherfucker only has 2 moves, period, that check for fire types, with his team of all steel types. And chances are those Pokemon won't even be fast enough to move before Cinderace. Even with a Pokemon that's quad weak to fire, what the fuck are you doing, Rose? Look, I get it, they all have the implication that Rose used to be a challenger or a gym leader, and that's why his team's monotype or whatever, but A, that's a dumb explanation, and B, even if it were an explanation, it's still dumb. Just give Rose, like, steel ground type to counteract its weakness on his team. Like the slow yet bulky Steelix that could tank hits and fight back with earthquakes. Or an Excadrill that could potentially outspeed any annoying fire types before they get to move. And even debuff their speed with Bulldoze just in case they weren't moving slow enough. I'm just saying, either of these would have been more beneficial to him than a goddamn Clink Clank. Though I will say, while I like a lot of the minor details in Rose's fight and after the fact relating to the story, there are so many annoying little details before that point that all stack together and really prevent me from liking him as much as others probably do.
It would be so awesome. It would be so cool.
Now, Pokemon Legends Arceus is a really interesting case of a game, narrative-wise, given this game doesn't really have a villain for most of the story. Sure, there's the Charm Bandits, but they're really only plot-relevant like 3 times total, Which honestly only supports my theory that the real villain of Pokemon Legends Arceus is xenophobia. Until the postgame, that is, where after stopping the God of Space or Time's Rampage, respectively. Personally, I went with Dialga myself, since I am a fan of good final boss designs. We find out the real mastermind behind the plotted destruction of space and time was the merchant who you encountered across all your journey, the Gen 4/5 fans PTSD enabler himself, Volo. Now, not only does PLA handle Volo in this super cool way wherein he doesn't wear a piece of paper on his back saying, "I'm the main villain," and gives you time in the story to grow attached to him as a character. I know that sounds weird, but just know if you're not a Pokemon fan, that's really saying something for this franchise. No, really, these two things are so simple, yet they do so much to allow you the time to care for this dude as a character, only for the inevitable setup of Volo being subtle by Pokemon standards to set a sinking feeling of doubt in your mind, and for his big reveal of being the one who partnered with Giratina to hurt that much more. But after that, you get to enjoy a sheer villainy of wanting to meet and dethrone God in one of the best fights in Pokemon history. Again, won't go into as much detail as I would like to go into. Watch a video specifically catered to that discussion if you want that, but TLDR is that this fight is actually just peak Pokemon, from being a proper use of weaponized nostalgia, the music itself being immaculate even without context, and the actual fight itself being super challenging due to a combination of the changes in the combat system, and the fact that Volo technically has 8 Pokemon, and 2 of them are just Giratina but again. And then once you beat him, and you have your flute turned into the Azure Flute by God, which, sick reference by the way, I was also around in 2009, Volo just cannot process the fact that someone else was chosen to meet Arceus over him, someone who claims to have worshipped Arceus basically his whole life, which leads to him leaving Spear Pillar defeated and to tell Professor Laventon that Giratina no longer wants to be the baddie, leaving Volo to walk off into the sunset, never to be seen again. At least until the postgame of Scarlet and Violet, where he comes back to have an epic showdown with Spectra Phantom from Bakugan to fight for the right to be my one true monster-collecting franchise-based husbando.
Find out who would win a death battle.
Super Mario in real life.
Now that leads us to the up-and-coming release of Scarlet and Violet. Now with this game coming out in... I know what you're asking. What the fuck is a Bakugan? But also, what kind of twist villain do you want out of Scarlet and Violet? And I'll answer both of those questions in due time. I'll start with the second one. The answer is none. Yep. I just want a return to form with traditional evil teams. And I mean a proper return to form. I want one that's less like Team Yell in terms of, well, being Team Yell. Hell, one that's even less like Team Galactic, wanting to use the Legendary to do some evil shenanigans. And I just want one more like Team Rocket. Just a bunch of jerks misusing Pokemon that I want to make stop misusing Pokemon. That's really all I need out of a Pokemon story. Maybe you can call them something like Team Inquisitor, and they're based around the Spanish Inquisition, giving the Spain-based region. And, you know, encounter them along the way, doing some evil shit, and have occasional fights with their bosses while you do the gym stuff. Now, while I still feel they'll force the evil team to interact with the legendaries for some stupid reason, at least then with the majority of encounters with this game, it would revolve around your desire to help Pokemon from whatever Team Inquisitor plots to do with them, instead of, you know, stopping them because they want to fuck over the space-time continuum using Noodle Drawn, the time fuckery Pokemon. I don't know. Now, I doubt we will get something like this, which is why I'm going to go over what I would ideally like to see out of a twist villain if we do get one in Scarlet and Violet. First, give me enough time for them to be villains in the story. Not always a surefire solution, given Volo exists, but it does help a lot with characters like both Lysander and N, and help solidify their characterization.
Number 2.
Flesh out their motivations for what they're doing. I'm not expecting much, this is still Pokemon after all, but I want at least something that could either make me feel bad for them and want them to come back to being a good guy, or make me hate not seeing their villainy sooner and allow me to get further invested in the narrative either way.
Number 3.
Make him a tough fight. This one's optional, but given how Lucamine did not hit as hard as she could have due to her lackluster fight, I would love to see this addressed, and given the, again, Volo, I have a feeling they'll make him a tough enough fight. Really, it all depends on where they are at in the story. And finally, number 4, make their hair either blonde or green. A weird note, I know, but for some reason, mainline Pokemon only knows how to make good twist villains if their hair is one of these two colors. I can't explain it using any kind of logical deduction. It's just an anomaly that goes beyond my human comprehension. And on that note, I'm gonna see you guys later, and remember one thing, Smoliv do not deserve right.
You thought you could stop me from forcing my chaotic spaced influencing upon your audience, but you were wrong.
Oh, thank God, I never resolved that problem. What? Do you guys not keep one of these things around in case of a break-in? Well, that just sounds like a weak mindset to me.